This is Me Before Mom, the podcast that helps moms stay connected to themselves while doing the most important job they'll ever have. And I'm your host, Bert Anderson. Hey, this is Bert, and you are listening to Me Before Mom. So today I want to talk to you guys about the story of my book, Me Before Mom, putting your oxygen mask on first. You know, I have been working away at fulfilling a lifelong dream of mine for, well, it's been over a year now. And that lifelong dream is that I wrote a book. You see, it all started with a goal of being found by a publisher. And then that goal turned into me becoming empowered. And it was this empowering project that I started of independence. I've learned so much about the publishing world and myself since I started writing, and I just have to tell you guys about it. So there have been ups and there have been downs. Actually, there have been more downs, to be honest. I didn't anticipate that the amount of emotional energy that it would take to write this book. I had no idea when I started this process. I honest to goodness thought I was going to write a book in a month. I know, you can laugh. It's ridiculous. I don't know what on earth I was thinking. I had to walk away at one point after about, 6 weeks because I just could not. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is garbage. This should be done by now. And I remember talking to my husband and he was like, Bert, it's a book. Like, why do you think you're going to, nobody's putting a deadline on you. Why do you think you're going to write this in a month? And I'm like, because I'm going to write it in a month. I said so. We are really, really good at believing in ourselves, aren't we, ladies? Super good at it. But I always had this book idea in the back of my head and I hadn't come up with a name for it. But when I look at my earlier writing on my blog as a mother and then other blogs that I've written and contributed for, the idea, this Me Before Mom idea, is so present in my writing. And that idea is that you don't have to completely lose who you are and all that you were to become a mother. My own mom, and I've talked about this a little bit, my own mom really lived this way when I was a child, and I never felt like she didn't love me, or I never felt like she didn't pay enough attention to me. What I saw instead was how difficult it was for her to reclaim her identity when my sister and I got into high school, because she spent more time alone because we were off doing our own things, living our best lives. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom who spent the majority of her days alone. It also didn't help that my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved every 2 to 3 years. So she didn't have this core group of friends, that she had been parenting with and doing life with for years upon years. And, when I entered high school, we had moved to New Jersey. My mom didn't know anybody. So I watched her go through that, and that was hard. And thinking back to it, it was hard. And I didn't realize how lonely she was until she told me she was lonely. She was like, I really felt alone, incredibly alone. And when your kids are teenagers, you feel really alone. Then there's my best friend who, after being a stay-at-home mom for over 16 years, had her marriage completely fall apart. Her husband, one day out of the blue, said, I want to be separated. And then later that went into, I want a divorce. So my friend had devoted everything to her family, who she was, her identity as a woman, and did the mom thing. And then in an instant, she had to start over. She was in her 40s and she had to completely start over. So watching her wrestle with not only the question of how am I going to support myself and my children, but also having to watch her find herself all over again was incredibly eye-opening to me. And that's really where the roots of this book started, was watching her go through that. And so I started to ask myself, how can I stop this from happening to me? So I wrote a blog post about this, of course, because, that's what you do when you're a blogger. You write a blog post. And it was called 2017, the Year of Me. So I did a Facebook Live and I encouraged my viewers to do one thing, just one thing that was for themselves every day for 20 minutes. And it needed to be one thing that was not centered around your children. Read a book. You can, if you like to do crafts or you like to teach, that's fine, but find a way to do it that it's not centered around your kids and your kids' feelings and your kids' identities and who they are. So I talked about this, and the reaction from the viewers was so positive that I knew that this idea of trying to find ourselves while in the throes of motherhood was something that other women were resonating with. And I actually had 2 viewers who contacted me, and they thanked me for giving them permission to think about themselves for the first time in years. One of them actually went on to get a teaching degree. She started with her 20 minutes reading because she loved to read, and then that evolved into I really like learning, and I really like to teach people. And now she is a math teacher in high school. Didn't think she was going to do that. So what I want to do, my goal for not only my book, but this podcast, is I want to start a movement where we as mothers not only embrace our role, but we embrace who we have become since we started on this motherhood journey. I'm not the same woman I was when I was 26 years old, thank God. And that's when I had my son. I've gone through depression, raising my children, 3 pregnancies, medical problems, marriage struggles, you name it. All in 10 years. And I can see how I have to take care of myself before I can take care of my children or my husband. Because when I'm not caring for myself, my depression sneaks up on me. And that's not good for anyone. Plus, and I say this over and over again, if I want to raise adults who contribute to the good of society, then those adults have got to be able to leave me. They have to leave my nest. And I can't make my children feel like my entire sole purpose in this life is them. I just can't. Because they need to understand that the world is bigger than they are. And there are other people who are more important than them. So it does. It goes against every fiber in my being, as I'm sure it goes against every fiber in your being, just listening to this. But I believe that no individual should feel as if the world is centered around them. And it doesn't help anyone when they're thinking that way. Nobody benefits from that, except for maybe the person who's incredibly narcissistic. So I started to write, and I wrote until I couldn't write anymore. Like I said, I had to take a break. I hired an editor, Libby, to kind of hold my feet to the fire and make me get things done. And she definitely held my feet to the fire. You never really know how tough you are until you have somebody critique your words and your thoughts on paper. And she was brutally honest, but I love her and I love everything that she did, because as a result, she made Me Before Mom kind of the book that it is today, speaking to all women. I did a lot of emotional and almost verbal processing during the writing process. In fact, she made me get rid of an entire chapter. I cried that day when she was like, this really has nothing to do with the book. Like, what is this reader going to think? How is this going to relate to that reader? And honestly, she was right. Like, she was right. I got rid of the chapter after I cried about it. And after she said, okay, is the reason why you don't want to get rid of this chapter simply because you don't want to lose the pages? And it was true. I didn't want to lose those pages. Deleting that entire chapter was horrifying, but I cannot see the book being what it is today if I had let that chapter in. I would have isolated an entire audience with that chapter, and it wouldn't have helped anybody. What came about was a short book written for mothers everywhere. Me Before Mom truly is my love letter to you, Mom. Not only telling you how to really begin to take care of yourself, but to give yourself the permission to do so. And that is what I want for you. I want you to ditch the mom guilt, pursue your dreams and your passions, and live a full life. And in the process, above all else, be kind to yourself. Always be kind. Yes, I wrote a book, but let's back the train up a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit of how I got to this space. So 2009, decided that I should probably start paying attention to the things my son was doing and keep record of them. I'm not a scrapbooker. At the time, it was a big scrapbooking your baby's first year type of thing. It's just not me. So I took to my computer and I started writing a blog on Blogspot. Things kind of developed from there, and it wasn't until I was pregnant with my second child in 2011 that I started to pay attention to the blogging world and be like, you know what? Like, I am just as good of a writer as all these other people are. I totally think I could do this. The Pioneer Woman was starting to come up into like the national scene, and it was like, oh, like you can actually, you don't have to wait to have somebody find your writing. You can make something yourself. And I liked that. At first, my blog was called First Time Mom, because whether you have one child or 19, there's a first time for everything. That was my motto. And I wrote about those first time things in motherhood. I talked about depression, breastfeeding, cloth diapers. Yep, I cloth diapered all three of my children. And it was fun. And this blog that I started writing grew into this community. What I loved most about it was the fact that I was helping women. Every time I wrote a blog post about depression, and I would have somebody write to me and be like, thank you so much, because I cannot explain how I feel, but your words are exactly what I'm feeling right now. And because you've written this, I can share it with somebody. I mean, that is like everything to me. I just want to help people. I just want to give a voice to those who can't articulate their feelings, because I have no problem talking about mine. What started as just keeping track of my son's first everything to, hey, I think I'm going to write a blog and kind of do this thing. It's turned into probably the most empowering venture of my life. And it all has come and kind of like culminated. And I don't think this is the end, but it's culminated into this book. My book, Me Before Mom, Putting Your Oxygen Mask on First. That's all we have. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to connect with me on bertmanderson.com, and please visit our website, matriarchdm.com, for all of the show notes and to hear other awesome podcasts.